目在手头拢有节目单来互恁参考。首先，咱会先邀请主办单位北加州台湾同乡联合会会长来甲讲咱主办这个音乐会的目的。过来，咱会邀請蔡医師來甲你講228的歷史，互大家了解228的事情了後，我們會進行點滴、默哀以及為228受難者及其家屬禱告。接着，我們會透過音樂沉澱我們的心，在經歷這重大的歷史事件之後，希望我們對台灣的愛能為台灣帶來和平與希望。In today's program, we are going to share the history of 228 with you. During the ceremony of lighting candles and the moment of silence, we honor the people who have sacrificed their lives for our freedom. We pray for them and their families. Later, through music, we wish the love of our common Taiwan will bring us hope and peace. 北加州台湾同鄉會會長高逞陽來為咱講幾句話。Now we would like to welcome TAFNC President Mr. Gao on stage for open remarks.
严主任、钟主任、各位乡亲，大家好。今日首先謝謝出席這屆228音樂會所有志工，因為呢付出到這屆音樂會，因為感謝台灣同鄉會台理事會長辛苦的安排，也感謝這屆演出所有音樂家，甲借予咱當地這個灣區台灣基督教會。當然，更海多謝來參加這屆音樂會所有鄉親，多謝大家支持。1947年台灣發生的228事件，是每一個台灣人心中的痛。多謝台灣精英理解事實中被消失、被迫害，但是最大痛是到今仔日2019年的今仔日，還佫無法度了解全部真相。抑個我同所有的創業者一個公道，對這個事件，咱會當分析，但是咱袂當迷茫。分析的前提就是愛真相。分析的意義是未來者人講的，毋是加害人講的。咱無法度接受加害人對咱講，愛向前看，袂使向後看。所有代志會當久久的準無去，當作無發生。分析前提就是真相，就是道歉，就是真相。啊，若無，咱毋通要做成啥？咱今仔日真歡喜，政府有一個轉型正義委員會，但是所多是想法，咱遮。衷心期盼，會讓加緊速度、加緊腳步，互真相早日釐清，還予所有的受害者一個公道。 今仔日这做这音乐会，希望会当领平咱心中的空气，给咱带来平静也和平。多谢大家。
Now we would like to welcome Dr. Chie Tsai on stage to introduce the history of 228. His topic is "Did you hear? Echo of 228."
Hello, and welcome all, our respected community members and leaders, special guests, our performers, representing all generations of our Taiwanese American community. My name is Chie Tsai, and I am the founder of TaiwaneseAmerican.org. I was invited to give a brief introduction for today's event, and it is my honor to be with you here to commemorate 228. But I know this is an occasion that most of us already know all too well. We've heard about the day before. 228, so named after the date on which an incident led to a massacre, starting on February 28, 1947. We've heard the stories about what life was like in this post-Japanese colonial era, when the KMT nationalists were handed the administrative control of Taiwan. Our elders and their parents, who lived through this post-World War II transition period, used to whisper about the injustices at the dinner table. They talked about it privately. The mistreatment of the Taiwanese by the KMT nationalist soldiers, government corruption, land and property seizures, the poor economy, the food shortages. Our elders, they worked hard and they struggled, but yet they simmered with anger. Some were bold and brave enough to speak out and stand their ground. We've heard about the story about the death that sparked an uprising. A Taiwanese cigarette vendor selling her illegal cigarettes was confronted by agents from the Tobacco Monopoly Bureau. She resisted, and they pistol whipped her. The local witnesses saw the abuse, and soon a large, angry crowd swarmed the agents. Bang! One of the agents had opened fire into the crowd, and one Taiwanese lay dead on the ground. Word spread like wildfire throughout the island, and the angry masses rose up. The incident led to mass protests the next day on February 28, 1947. We've heard about the immediate consequences of 228. In response to the revolt, more nationalist troops were summoned and arrived from China, and almost immediately, Taiwanese people were shot indiscriminately. Others were targeted, tortured, and many were taken away, never to be seen again. In the end, an estimated 20 to 30,000 lives were extinguished. Community and student leaders, vocal critics, journalists, teachers, doctors, lawyers, and other elites. The list continues. 20 to 30,000 stories left untold. 20 to 30,000 people who could have shaped a stronger future for Taiwan during their time. We've heard and lived through the lasting legacy of 228. For the 4 decades that followed 228, 1947, the martial law and the white terror era attempted to silence our people. And for a long while, it did, or so it seemed. But our elders and their parents continued to whisper at the dinner table. Despite being taboo to speak of, they told of the disappearances, imprisonments, atrocities, and murders, so that we would never forget who we were. You listened, they listened, and eventually more and more stood up to reclaim dignity and justice despite the threat of imprisonment or death. You all know the rest of the story. Taiwanese and Taiwanese Americans organizing and protesting for democracy, for freedom of speech, a movement that would lead to the first opposition party in Taiwan, a vibrant democracy today, and presidential elections that have seen several peaceful transfers of power. And a new generation of young student leaders, sunflowers in hand, fiercely guarding their visions, dreams, and hopes for Taiwan. Many of you have spoken and played your role, and we heard. But here's another truth. Outside of this room, outside of our community, not enough people have heard. Some have even forgotten or dismissed 228. And others have even questioned whether the death toll was really that high. And unfortunately, some in our own younger generation have not yet been told. Will we continue to hear? I've heard some people say, well, it's the past. Let's not dwell on that. Sure, we must remember, but let's move forward. Taiwan is a success story today. And yes, I agree. But I also believe, just as you do, that we must never forget the lessons that 228 teaches us today. Because we must remember that Taiwanese will always stand up to injustice and fight for respect. We must remember that Taiwan's democracy was founded upon spilled blood, but driven by ideals and dreams for the future. We must remember that all people in Taiwan deserve a say in what our history textbooks teach us about ourselves. We will not be erased. We will not be forgotten. 228. We remember these dark days, knowing that it is necessary to walk into the darkness so that we can turn on the light. We revisit these atrocities so that we can uncover and teach the facts, so that we may speak truth to unjust power. And then we continue forward to honorably shape the future with the respect our history and our people deserve. So when we remember 228, let's not forget that we also depend on our next generation, whether they be of full Taiwanese heritage, Hakka people, indigenous lineage, or even Waisan, or of the many other new ethnic groups that call present-day Taiwan home. It will be up to all of them to keep on remembering, acknowledging, and holding up history and story as a moral guide towards a better future. We hear these lessons and we learn from them so that we may never make those mistakes again. Thank you for joining us today as we listen to the beautiful music from our performers. I hope you will continue to hear and cherish and honor those echoes from the past. Thank you very much.